Bonjour, everyone. Hi, this is Neshi Lokotz, and you are watching Star Nations Radio Network on Facebook live stream. We get to do this fun stuff with our partners at Be Live TV, and this show happens to be the Mystery School. And I have to say that without Be Live TV, we wouldn't be able to do this kind of show. So we really love our partners at Be Live because we get to have Carl and Ortrun Franklin, the co-hosts for this show. We get to be all on at the same time. And so we're going to get started. But before we bring the Ortrun and Carl on, I want to ask everybody, you guys who watch the show all the time, what we're going to ask you. We're going to ask you to please like and share the show. And the reason why is because we have to get the Facebook logarithms. I keep saying Facebook is a strange creature. Every time we think we understand it, it changes. And so for right now, in order to get their shows in front of as many people as possible on the news feed, liking, sharing, and commenting seems to be the key. So if you could help us do that, that would be fantastic. And I'm going to do the same thing. I have my phone, and I'm going to go to the show, the live show, if I can find it. There we go. Make sure my sound is down so we don't get an echo going on here. And I'm going to, of course, I love the show, so I'm going to love it. And then I'm going to share it. And I'm going to share it to our community at Star Nations. And that happens to be at the closed group. I just have to get there. They used to have it really easy for us to do, and then they changed it. All right, there we go. We're just going to ask them to join us. And there you go. That's simple enough, isn't it? So thank you. Thank you so much. And hey, Rob Kendall's in the house. Hi, Rob. Good to see you in the house. Thank you for being here with us. We appreciate it. And you know what? We're going to bring Carl and Ortrun Franklin on, co-hosts, and going to take their mute off the mic. Hi there.
Hello.
Hi.
How are you?
It's good to be with you, Neshi, and all of the people that are listening.
It's wonderful seeing everyone again. Well, seeing everyone, but I feel like we see you because we see some of your pictures coming by, so that's really nice.
Yeah. And, just welcoming everybody that's watching the live show and those who will be watching the recorded show, which I have to say, it's kind of like magic, really, because as soon as we finish the show, I don't know how Facebook does it, but it is ready to watch again as a recorded show, like seconds later. They have a magic wand or something, or maybe it's another dimension. I don't know, but it's pretty nice that everybody can see the show right after we finish if they need to. So we are at the end of March. Can you believe how fast this month went?
No, it's really very, very fast.
Very fast. Yeah. So tonight is all about community, and that's a topic that was selected. It's something that we do every month for the magazine, for Star Nations magazine, and to kind of help things along and make things a little bit easier and more streamlined. I made the suggestion maybe that Ortrun and Carl would be willing to use this show as part of their magazine article. And so this month, Ortrun, you selected community. Can you let us know why you chose that particular topic?
Well, Neshi's always very, very wonderful about having topics, different topics. And so basically, I look it over, and it's just the one that I'm drawn to. Whatever one I'm drawn to for that month is the one that I choose to focus in on, and that just happened to be the one that I focused in on. But I have to say, it was a little harder for me in a sense to write because it was all about, I share a lot of myself as it is, but with this, I felt like so much of it was just really talking about the community that I came from, with my background. So it was a little bit. I thought kept going back. Well, this is where I should go, and so on. But then the more, it flowed along, I knew it was the way that I was meant to go with it. And the more that I wrote it, the more it really made me recognize how much of a community it actually ended up being. Yes, there were many communities within the large community, but it started off small because small numbers. It was like when the people are going out to explore the West, and discover things and build up, and so it was quite an interesting thing to read. It's for me to I've known about it, but to just reflect on it, and that they were going there. Well, the community I'm speaking about they are called the Donauschwaben, and my background is I'm German. My father always said we're German, but yeah, the area that we came from was probably more the Alsace, France area, Alsace-Lorraine area of France.
You mean originally came from?
Yes, before they migrated down into this area in Eastern Europe. And so we may have French, who knows, but there was always border battles going on between Germany and France and Austria, all of them. And so this was just one of those places. And so there was a decision at one point made, and I don't know if I should get into it now or not, and I'm not sure how much we're going to do with this right at this moment. So just the way they transversed and moved, and really showed me so much. It just reminded me of how things were explored and how they were built up. Not only in how this occurred in Europe, although this is probably one of the largest migrations, I'm going to say, but even here in the United States, how people moved from the east and went out west. So it was just really quite interesting to see the parallel of the struggles and things like that people go through, really, for better lives.
Yeah, well, there's a little bit of a...
Oh, okay.
I might be sitting too close to my mic. Give it a second.
Okay, I'd like to comment on this if I can, Neshi. In reading what Ortrun wrote about her experience, a couple of thoughts struck me. One is the tremendous amount of struggle and work and, I'm going to say, suffering that it takes to build a new community. And the other thing is, you can have the most beautiful community in the world, but at some point it's going to end. And she and her parents particularly, went through an ending of this beautiful community that they were a part of. And in the process, not only was the community destroyed, but their lives were just uprooted and upset and never to be the same again. And I, the same is true for your background as an American Indian. That's your history also. And I think it's the history of all people throughout history.
Yeah, that's certainly something that we have in common,
Right.
And I think that when we talk about community, that is something that we all have in common, because we relied, and put it in present tense, we rely on our communities, those who support us, those who care about us. It's one of those aspects that when you have a strong, committed, close-knit community, you thrive.
Yes.
Right? When people are searching to belong someplace, they're not necessarily thriving. They're surviving, but they're not thriving.
Yes, that's true. Yes.
Well, there is, I'm going to say, quality in numbers. I mean, certainly not always quantity is necessary, but there is something about having the more input you're able to have with community, the more you're able to grow in awareness and consciousness. So of course, my family, where I started, I always say we started from when I was born at a survival mode, because that is really what we were in, was a survival mode.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't know exactly why my family in the 1700s chose to migrate there, but as I mentioned, the wars always going on between France and Germany and those borders. That was a reason, and they gave incentives. It was during the Habsburg dynasty, and the Habsburgs were a large dynasty, and they Maria Theresa is the one that she happened to be the only female ruler of that dynasty.
Yeah.
But she had herself, she bore 11 girls. And she did, but with the intention of these women that they would marry other men of other countries, so they could bring in these different countries and get more holding of land. Really, that was the intention. That was the way, that was their thinking back in those days.
Yeah.
I'm going to guess not many mothers think that way today.
Well, but they did back then. But yet, on the other hand, she did that. She had, besides 11 girls, she had who knows how many sons she had. But the thing is, she still ran a country.
Yep.
That's amazing that she was able to run a country and run it well. It was a very well-run country, at that time.
Well, it wasn't just a country; it was a dynasty
that
involved many countries.
Exactly, but they kept wanting to grow. But it was in Austria, and the Turks had fought their way up to Vienna in Austria, and at that point, that's where she had the stronghold. I mean, I shouldn't say she. It was the Habsburgs that got the stronghold. They started being able to push the Turks back,
right,
further and further to Eastern Europe and so on. And but then they wanted to retain the holdings that they got as they were pushing the Turks back.
Right.
And so,
well, I just want to put into perspective for our audience is that the Turks were the Ottoman Empire. And at the same time, they had the Roman Empire, and so this community that was run by a woman were literally kind of smashed in between them, and so that's where a lot of the wars were going from and that those countries, their borders kept shifting back and forth, right, and up to practically present day. Those borders keep shifting back and forth, at least up until the 1940s.
But again, as I said, I don't want to just speak about this community and what they did, but this particular community, they migrated down the Danube River to get to these certain places. And they were in Eastern Europe, and now the place that we would be living is now called Serbia. It was never called Serbia until after World War I. Then it became Serbia. Before that, it was always Austria-Hungary.
Right.
Because that Austrian-Hungary, that was the Habsburgs' rule. They pushed and they didn't join and merged with the Hungarians. But the thing is, this was all war-torn land. And so there were these incentives that went out. And there are people that wanted better lives for their families. And so they chose to do this, and the trip down the Danube wasn't easy to begin with. Some went by; they were called Donauschachtel, and Donau. Well, we called them Donauschachtel. I've also heard them called Ulmerschachtel, but Donau means Danube, and Schachtel means boxes. These boxes basically are just sort of makeshift boats that you went down, they traveled down the Danube. Many did go by covered wagons, just like they went out to the west, with covered wagons. But the other purpose of expanding that was because Maria Theresa happened to be Roman Catholic. So she also wanted to propagate that Roman Catholic faith.
Yeah,
right. So the ones that were invited to even go were given incentives at first, were the Roman Catholics because they wanted to have that influence in that area.
Mm-hmm.
So, but anyhow, so it was a very tough thing. There were 3 different movements that went through that Habsburg time, and the first one, it was called Caroline. It was one of the daughters of the Habsburgs. It was named after her, and with that one, there were 15,000 people that went to start settling into that area, and most of those people died.
Uh-huh.
So the first, what they would say, they ended up saying about these 3 different treks was the first one, the Erste war das Tod, which means the first one was death,
Mm-hmm.
because very few survived. The Zweite, which is the group that my family migrated in, hat die Not, said that the second group had the need. They had to keep going.
Uh-huh.
And the Dritte, which is the third trek of people, ended up finally having bread to eat. So it took 3 generations to even get things built where they were basically surviving.
Mm-hmm.
But then after that, but it took community. See, this is the thing, and this is where that's why I was writing about this, because these people, they came from different parts of, Germany or France, or probably even coming down through the Austrian countries, and they all came from somewhat different places, but they came together. They came together as a community because first and foremost, they had to. There were. It wasn't like they had their whole huge group of many, many people traveling with them. They were basically a family here, a family there. There's certain ones that chose to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And so when they got to that place, they had to start integrating with one another. And they had to start trusting each other, which is a very, very big thing,
Mm-hmm.
is to have that trust in community. They started working together, recognizing each other's talents and so forth. And then they started, like I said, trusting each other, working with each other, building with each other, socializing together, intermingling, eventually intermarrying,
Mm-hmm.
worshiping together. So these are all common traits of communities. And so the main purpose of my article was, I spent quite a bit of time on my particular ancestral group, but was to show how we all need this, and how whether it's some, it may just end up being their family, that's their community. And we all start out with our community of family, and for us it ended up because of good morning, good evening, Polly. I'm just waking up. For us, because after we lost everything after World War II, and at that point, that whole area was very prosperous because it ended up being called the breadbasket of Europe,
Right.
because they have such fertile lands, and they had beautiful large communities. I think they built 1,100 different towns, some large, some smaller, but they were prosperous, and they were all doing well by that time.
Mm-hmm.
And then gradually they started losing things again. And this is where this circles around. It happens to occur. So it's like we go through communities and then they die, and then we start up with new communities.
Right.
So there's that sort of the trend, I think, that everyone is involved with, whether they recognize it or realize it or not.
Mm-hmm.
So when we lost everything during World War II, we, of course, had to leave that area or we would have been annihilated. And there we sat. And so now what? So then again, it was then that my family, the trek down to Eastern Europe was in 1740. Now this is in the from 45 on, my family tried to get us somewhere, either to Germany or to America. We ended up, thank God, in America.
Mm-hmm.
But they sat there. You talk about being back in that survival mode because you had nothing, and then think, okay, how can we make the life better for our family again? And so they then started that same cycle over that their family had started,
Mm-hmm.
in the 1700s.
Right.
So things get built up, communities get built up, But I'm not saying they all get destroyed, but they can be physically destroyed. Mm-hmm. So that you then move on and start recognizing and becoming part of different communities. And so in my article, what I go on to talk about is that learning to deal with different communities then. So here we were now in America, and coming from, I never knew my family. I never knew any of my family. I never knew my grandparents, cousins, anyone, because most of them did die in Europe. And but my grandfather alone had 16 siblings. So you can imagine what a size community we would have been with the family alone.
Right.
But here, now we were together. There was my father, mother, my brother, and I. Joining us also, though, I had a brother who was 17 years older who was gone on his own, really. He had to just flee on his own. And my aunt. So here in America, that was our community, was this small group of 6 people. That was our community at that time, and it was immediate family. But then starting to reach out and then becoming more of a larger community. And I think this is a pattern that we all have. And so, and in the long run, when we look into it deeper and deeper, there are many, many communities that we meet with. We may actually end up becoming part of those communities, or may not become part of those communities. Mm-hmm. But the thing is that every single one of those communities, they leave some imprint within us.
Yes.
There is something that we've gained from those different communities. Mm-hmm. So one of the quotes, that I, in the article that I thought was really quite appropriate. It's actually about friends, about friends. They may be there for a reason, for a season, or a lifetime. Mm-hmm. And that's really how it is with community. Mm-hmm. Community. Hi, Elena. It's good to see you. But that is how also it is with community. Mm-hmm. And communities.
Right.
Because for some reason we may be part of our, we went to schools, different schools, and even with your Native American background, with your I don't know if it was with your parents, where they were pulled from their families and they were placed away from their families, and that separation. Mm-hmm. That was a community, but it somehow it's still within their soul. There's something they learned, whether it was good or bad. There's something that they gained from that. Mm-hmm. You might call it positive. I think in the long run, everything is positive, but there are lessons that were learned, from that for the communities that they then, went back to and mm-hmm. they started over with.
Yeah. Neshi, I want to hear about you. Your experience is quite different.
Right.
I would like to hear about your experience with building a community. Yeah.
With a community. Well, when you talk about the time frames, when you talk about the people coming from Europe and moving to the West and how that migration happened, many Native Americans were literally pushed to the West. A dislocation, mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right? And so, having the same or similar situations where you are forced into another person's culture, because not all Native American tribes have the same culture. Mm-hmm. And so, being put into that situation where you either, hopefully you can make friends rather than enemies. Mm-hmm. And so that happened, 500 to 700 years ago. And so it is a part of the DNA. It's a part of the lineage history that we carry in our DNA, right? And so in modern times, in this century, it's a matter of survival and resiliency, I think, is that we all have the ability to make lemonade out of lemons, so to speak. You take what seems to be a bad situation and you try to make it the best you can. for instance, when in Native American history, when Native Americans were put on reservations were really prisoners of war camps.
Mm-hmm.
And so when our ancestors were taken there, placed there, they were literally given a number, renamed, different birth days. And it was just depended on who that person was from the government that was registering them. And so those numbers were really prisoner of war numbers. But as you move forward in time, those numbers then become our connection to that land. That gives us certain sovereign rights because we are sovereign nations. And the U.S. government actually agreed that those were sovereign nations. So when I can take my grandfather's original allotee number, when he was given it to him when he was, I think, 6 or 7. And so it's 431 is his original allotee number. So when I fill out paperwork where I have to prove who I am and in what quantities I am, I can link my number, my registration number, to an original allotee number. And in some Native American tribes, governments, that's a big deal. And others, it's not so much. But so the experience, Carl, is similar in the fact that we had to figure out a way to survive, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm so glad that my ancestors did, because I get to be here,
right?
And I get to talk about this stuff. One of the things that struck me as very rich and really needing to be talked about. That's why I'm so glad that you chose to continue this with the show from your article, is because so many people who watch our shows, listen to our shows, are actually from European descent. Mm-hmm. And so this may be the very first time that they actually hear about something like this that actually occurred to their own ancestors, and they never even knew anything about it.
Mm-hmm. Neshi, there's one big difference here. Mm-hmm. The Europeans, mm-hmm. they moved because they chose to move.
Yes.
You did not. Your people were forced. They did not have a choice.
Well,
and they were moved more as prisoners of war, if you will.
Yeah, it ended up that way. It ended up that way in the early days, mm-hmm. when the Europeans first landed on Plymouth Rock, so to speak. Mm-hmm. They were not pushing the indigenous people to the west yet. They were trying to get to know them. They didn't even know that they existed until they actually stepped on the shores, right? And so the movement at the very beginning was not necessarily coerced. It was making room for somebody. It was, we'll move a little bit over here, because there was migration, there was summer camps, and there were winter camps. And so when they would move to their winter camp, for instance, they might move a little bit further in one direction or another because they knew that they were making room for someone else. So in the beginning, it wasn't completely by force. It wasn't until, probably the 1500s, late 1400s, that it became forced. And then we start getting into being pushed west, and being pushed from one nation into another until we get to the Mississippi River.
Can I share a story with you?
Sure.
The first ship after the Mayflower are the ones that bought Manhattan from the Indians. Mm-hmm. And one of the members of that group, his name was Charles, wasn't it? Van Slyck?
It was Van Slyck. I can't
His
remember
last name was Van Slyck.
Van Slyck.
My dad's grandmother is an ancestor of her.
Oh, okay.
And Van Slyck, he became the ambassador between the settlers and the Indians.
Mm-hmm.
And he ended up marrying an Indian chief's daughter who was located in the Albany, New York area.
Okay.
And there is now a Van Slyck Museum in Albany to recording that early history. And you're exactly right. The Indians helped to feed the early settlers.
Yeah.
They taught them how to hunt.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And they taught them, I'm going to say, many of the ways of the Indians so that they could be successful. Yes. And meanwhile, the settlers shared their technology with the Indians. They were the ones that provided them with guns and really, I think, even showed them how to melt metal and make them and make gunpowder and so on. So it was a real cooperative effort between the two. I think if the Indians had not done that, the settlers probably would not have survived.
No, they wouldn't have. I mean, that is something that has been anthropologists and all kind of ologists have certainly proved that. Rob Kendall in the chat room is saying the treatment of Native Americans under the settler colonialism of Europeans would fall well under the definition of genocide as defined by the UN. And yes, that is true, Rob. That is very true. And that is another aspect that has been proven along the way. Just because it's proven doesn't mean anything has really happened with it. But at least there's the UN,
There's a recognition.
May
I butt in here? What Carl is talking about, with mine is because they were moving. But when my family was moving, it wasn't because they wanted to move. And it was the same kind of thing as what you're speaking about. My family they were either annihilated
Mm-hmm.
by the Russians or they were taken into concentration camps.
Right.
And that's why, my whole family, I don't know anyone, I knew there were very few people that survived, period. So, but we were fortunate that we were able to move, but the thing, or get out of that area, because we were within days of the Russians being in our town. So we were fortunate to just get out that last minute. But the thing is that I really want to take this a little bit step further, because as I mentioned, these are all things, this is all history. These are all things that, the Europeans have experienced this, we have experienced this here in our own land. But when I started looking at mine, and as I mentioned, we've gone through many, many different communities, and we've learned and grown, and it depends on our focus. Now, not everyone has learned to grow with that.
True.
But the thing is that if you are into, I'm going to say spirituality, there are things you've learned, you've gained, you've started to understand that why you were even put in these positions, because there are reasons that before you ever came here to the earth plane, you made commitments with your divine ones, with your guides and masters. I'm coming down here to be of service to the planet. And so I came down here. And yes, at first for us, it was very much survival when we came after the war. It was very definite survival. But then, of course, it wasn't easy coming to the United States and integrating. Then I lost my father right away, too. So it was very, very difficult. But because I was very spiritually inclined, that I think is the push that pushed, me through. And I think that the majority of people, no matter what way they express their beliefs, that's what brings them through and helps to uplift them. And what I mentioned eventually, the most important community that I found was my spirit family.
Yeah.
Okay. Neshi, she led into exactly what I was guided to share tonight.
Good segue.
Okay. We all have a family that we can never forcibly be separated from. And that is with light workers, and I've done life script readings for over 3,000 now, we all have a spirit family. They number between 25 and 30, comprised of angels, comprised of higher aspects of ourself, comprised of master teachers and ascended master teachers. And most of them are with us 24/7. Mm-hmm. And I'm sad to report that it's my observation that most people totally ignore them because they don't even know they're there.
Right.
So these communities have never been established for them. But we have the freedom of, in our meditative state, or as we're falling asleep or waking up, or just in a very quiet, relaxed time, letting our consciousness roam around the room and sensing the presence of these beautiful, beautiful, highly evolved beings who not only love us, but are there to help us if we ask. Mm-hmm. So we have all of this help and wisdom and knowledge by these evolved beings for the asking. And, it's my joy to go through every day sensing their presence, not every moment of every day, mm-hmm. but several times, many times every day, I sense their presence. And if there is some way in which they can be helpful, all I have to do is ask. Mm-hmm. So we have this wonderful, beautiful community that we're blessed with. And please become aware of it, and please use it. If you're a parent and you remember when your children were younger and you knew you could help them in a situation they were in, but they didn't ask, and you were wise enough to know you needed to wait until they asked, and meanwhile you had to watch them suffer. Well, that's how our spirit family has to put up with us when we don't ask. It's painful for them. So they appreciate the asking, and they really appreciate the opportunity to be of help.
Yeah. So about I got this echo going on. When my mom talks about her youth, right, when she was a child, that they were not encouraged to ask questions, right? When you explain it that way, that's kind of how I see our guides, our spirit families, that when we don't ask the question or we don't ask for help, it's kind of like when she was a child, when the adults or near adults were watching them trying to figure something out, and they learned a lot by watching, not by asking, mm-hmm. by listening and watching. Yeah. And then once they would try it and they couldn't get it, then the adult would step in and say, "Let me show you one more time." Now they didn't do it for them. They're just going to show it to them, and now try it again.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's similar, but it must be what they must feel like, our guides, our teachers, when we're struggling with something and we don't ask for that help. I mean, to be able to have to stand back and watch mm-hmm. a struggle.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But there was something about society that I know, me being of a German, society, that you didn't ask questions. Yeah. You just basically, what you were told, that's the way it was. Mm-hmm. And that's the way we learned. And I know Carl is very different in this, but he was raised in America, and I came to America. I was raised here, but I still had all his influence, that was of the European, segment. I mean, and all the things that we were taught. And Germans especially was very much, you do as you're told, and and I have to say, I'm going to get a little bit into the way the schools are nowadays. There's geared to early 1900s, and back in those days, it was okay. I mean, because we were more, yes, we'll follow the rules. Yes, we will, just tell us, how to do it, and we will, respect it and do it just exactly that same way. We're not going to question. I know there was those that had questions and they broke out, but really and truly the ones around me it was not that many. And I was in a Catholic, school and so on. You just You did what you were told, and what you learned. You learned by memorization because that's the way you were shown how to do it, and you memorized it.
Right.
Where and then there were those other ones like Carl, which I'm going to say they probably are more into the indigos because they were around too.
Yeah.
And they said, well, I don't want you to show me how. I'm going to do it myself. Right? Which is good, because they then started really being able to explore more, and they were able to move beyond this box that was established for most of us, because this is the way it was for all of us.
Yeah.
I remember when I was divorced when I was 27, and I had, come to the States, and I started in the Catholic school. I graduated from the Catholic school. I got married. I had children, and I was really in a box. I had a very small community still around me at that point in time. And I started, I was working, of course, at that time. And then I started going out some with my friends. And all of a sudden, it was like this explosion of the recognition how many different kinds of people there are out there. Yeah. I mean, so that allowed me then to start. Well, first and foremost, I said, no, my children are not going to Catholic school. They're going to public school because I want them to recognize and realize there are different people other than us. Mm-hmm. But that's part of the whole growth, and the part of, first there was the survival mode. Then there was the mode of, basically, I know the Europeans very much, especially after the war, they only trusted their immediate family because they didn't know who to trust. But then the letting go and starting to reach out and allowing others to come in and beginning to trust them, which is what the communities did originally.
Yeah.
Because that's how the only way that they were going to be able to survive and to move forward. And then, when you're doing your spiritual growth, you first you're praying for yourself, to be enlightened and whatever. But the thing is then all of a sudden it's the more that you realize, then all of a sudden you want to open up and you want to start reaching out. Yes. And embracing others too, and making them part of your community, and it gets larger and larger. And that's what's so wonderful about this network, is because it's allowing this bridge.
Yeah. Because
we are, this is one of the ways that we are communicating now with the whole world.
That's right.
So where before we moved into our metaphysical communities and our healing groups and different communities of that sort. And they were great, but we were still only within a small space, but now the expansion has gotten so much larger because of technology.
Yes.
Yes. And so that we're now really connecting, and our communities are not anymore just our immediate ones that we're doing our healing group with, but this is a community. We have reached out and we're embracing many people from around the world.
Yeah, Neshi, she brings up a point here that has been overlooked. Community isn't all good. Mm-hmm. There can be a downside to it. Mm-hmm. And the downside is for those people that never move beyond their own community. Mm-hmm. The community then becomes, in essence, a prison or a box, which limits their thinking, their exploration, their exploring their potential. And community is essential for human life because we are social creatures, and no person is an island unto themselves. But I think we need to know that a community is not the beginning and the end. It is the beginning and allows us a safe place to grow. Mm-hmm. But if we can outgrow our community, we will have more to offer the community, and thus helping the entire community evolve.
I agree. What I find very beneficial for the Star Nations community is because we are so eclectic. There we are so many people from different backgrounds, different beliefs, different parts of the world. And each one of us come with our own unique little community, right? And I see them as overlapping circles, like the Vesica Pisces.
Yes.
That we come together and we share, and We support each other. We care about each other. And in that overlap of all these smaller communities into the bigger community is like the flower of life for me.
Yes.
You know, and I find that comforting, one, and it's like I have to admit it's kind of like a high five too, because 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 we're eclectic, we can share different aspects of just one topic, and it becomes so deep and rich of the information, and yet we have this common thread, that golden thread that goes through all of us, and that spirit. Mm-hmm. And to me, that is, I find so much joy in that. I really do. And to be able to have our shows live streaming, yes, we are reaching so many more people worldwide than what we were with internet radio. And so that's a good thing. But I also do agree with Carl that if we don't look to other perspectives on a given subject, we find ourselves in a closed society rather than an open society. Mm-hmm. That makes sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
And what I guess one of the points I would like to make here is that I think most people view community as a flat plane. Mm. And that's the physical world. Mm-hmm. And I would like to see them move it into a 3D, where it has not only width and depth, or width and length and width, but also depth. Mm-hmm. And if we can connect the spirit world that is with us with the physical world, we're creating something that is better than either would be separately.
Yes.
And this takes, I think, a conscious effort to do this, mm-hmm. because it's not taught in schools, it's not taught in churches, and it's rarely taught in families. Mm-hmm. So, but if we take the initiative to incorporate that, our community of which we are a part, be it a family, a neighborhood, a town, or a nation, or even a world, they all benefit from that. Mm-hmm. And if we have enough people doing that, we're going to be transforming who we are and the way we live and the way we relate to each other.
Absolutely. Now, let me ask you this. Now that you mentioned the dimensions, third dimension, when we're together in a community, and let's just pick our community because we're here right now, and we want to look at it at a perspective that we look at it from a 3D, as you mentioned, and if we look at it from a 4D, what does that look like? And then when we reach into the 5D,
oh my,
what does that look like? Can you share it? Because I know you see it. So can you kind of?
Well, I want to share something that there's a growing anticipation that is going to be happening next month or probably next. I'm sorry, in May. We're at the end of April now, aren't we?
Yes.
End of March. Okay, it'll be either happening in April or in May. And this is coming from now several sources. There are to be 3 days in which very high waves of energy are going to be encompassing the earth. And the energy is going to be the energy of love. And I believe it's going to arrive and leave as in the shape of a bell circle. It'll start gently, but then it will build up to, I'm going to say, the most intensive level of any energy that we have yet received. And if it may be so intense that many people will not be able to function in a normal manner. Okay, but there will be moments where it will be absolute bliss. Okay, and probably the highest sense of love and bliss and joy and peace that any of us have ever experienced. And when you're in that state, you're not going to be very productive, nor are the people at the grocery store or the doctor's offices, okay? So if this does occur, know that this is an absolute powerful, powerful blessing. And nobody is going to be exactly the same after it. Because what's going to happen is it's hopeful that a vast majority of humanity will embody that, will become a part of them, and it will collectively raise the consciousness of the entire human race. And those that cannot embody it, they're not going to want to be here. So they'll find a way to leave.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So anyway, that can greatly enhance the family of people that on the surface of the earth.
And what is the Earth time frame on that?
Well, it looks like it'll be April or May of this year.
Okay.
They call
They're all asking in the chat room, when is this coming? When is it? Polly Joe says beginning April 22nd.
Well, I don't know. But anyway, it's called the event.
The event.
Right? Event,
okay.
Yes. So you can Google that.
I'm going to.
But you know, we've heard these things before, but the thing is that I do believe that, Carl and I have been in metaphysics for over 40 years, and we've heard this kind of thing before. But I do think that every time there is an increase, there are things going on that we don't recognize and we don't see with our eyes, but we can feel them. As a matter of fact, last week was a high intensity time again. And last Saturday, I could not function, period. I mean, everything in my body just said, you're not doing anything. You're in bed. And, and it's on one hand, it's frustrating, but yet on the other hand, I know because I'm very sensitive that I just feel this energy so tremendously. Mm-hmm. And then, it took a day or two to really get beyond that again. And I think this is going to be, but even a higher level of that energy that is changing us.
I'll be asleep.
What happened late last week was it was a tremendous surge of energy coming from our own sun. A coronal mass ejection. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I know, because Saturday was rough. I was working on a magazine and trying to stay awake.
Oh, yeah.
I literally had to say, okay, enough. I'm making too many mistakes. I'm going to go take a break. I went, took care of Mom, said, here's your snack early. I need to go and take a nap. I'll be back in 45 minutes or so, half hour. And I couldn't, I was making so many mistakes that I ended up having to go back and redo things anyway. So just stop.
Neshi, I'm glad you were honoring your body, and that's exactly what we need to do if this wave of energy comes in the next couple of months.
Right. Yeah. They say many of us will probably be sleeping through it, because we are going to be, it's going to be tiring us out, So I mean, we might feel it, but it's like you felt, I can't do a thing. I just can't do anything right now, so I might as well go.
Well, I'm going to say this out loud. I want to experience it in a very graceful way.
Yes. Uh-huh.
I want to be conscious of it in a graceful way.
Yes. Good luck to you, honey.
No, it will be. It's it's going to be the high frequency energies, but we are going to feel it, I think, in a beautiful, beautiful way. Whether it's the end result is that beautiful way because all of a sudden we're seeing things in such a different manner, that we've been told before many, many times that we may be going to sleep for 3 days and all of a sudden, we're waking up. We wake up and all of a sudden we don't even notice there's a difference. And all of a sudden we realize there's a difference because everything is brighter. All the colors are so much more beautiful and vibrant. These are things we've been told before, and I do believe that they are coming.
Yeah. Well, anyway, the Bible talks about 3 days of darkness.
Yes.
And our grandkids and so on will get to talk about the 3 days of love.
Yeah. Okay. I am looking at the time. I don't know. I'm going to ask Ortrun this. Ortrun, were you looking to do a meditation tonight at all?
Well, I was, but we've only got 4 or 5 minutes.
Yeah, we can go over a little bit. That's fine. There's nobody behind us, so it's not like we're stepping on somebody's time.
Okay. Well, if you'd like me to, I would do that. I think it would be nice for us to connect as community.
Yeah.
Not only to our immediate community, but also to our spiritual community.
Mhm.
Might be nice to sit in that for a few moments.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So why don't we go ahead and do that then?
Okay, sounds good.
Okay. So take a deep breath. And allow yourself to become still and to be at peace. To be at peace. And be still. Recognize that with each breath that you take, how the energy that is surrounding you is shifting, how it is changing, allowing you to become ever more comfortable and at peace, and feeling this sense of beauty surrounding you. And let your mind be quiet and listen. Listen to the holy silence that is more than any word. Hear it say, I love you. I love you. Feel it surrounding you, embracing you. Sense yourself being showered with love, with light, with peace, with joy. All your divine ones are dancing around you. They are changing the energy vibration that you are and uplifting it. For they're moving these energies as though they're brushing your hair or fluffing your hair, fluffing your aura, lifting you up ever to a higher level of awareness and consciousness. And as you're lifted up, find yourself being met by the one that is overseeing all those that are of your spirit family, that divine inner presence, the divine presence of your soul, the I am. The I am is with you. The I am is looking deeply into your eyes. Seems as though the eyes are smiling at you, and your eyes smile back at your I am's eyes. And you find your two eyes, the two eyes you're looking in, as you merge together with this I am, becoming only that one eye, the all-seeing eye, the eye of the divine sun. For you are the sun. You are the sun in expression. And as you merge with this eye of the sun, feel it as it is around you now. For you have merged with the sun that you are. Look at the glow of this sunlight that is you. You're in the center. Look at the beautiful waves of energy that come with it. Find yourself floating on this sun as though it is this magic carpet. And this magic carpet, this beautiful sun, lifts you up ever higher, higher, moving you through many dimensions of love. You come to understand different types of love, light, the levels of peace and joy. With it, you embrace not only yourself, but those that are around you. You embrace this beautiful planet. You embrace the Milky Way galaxy. You embrace the universe, this universe and the others, many others, until you embrace the all that there is. And find yourself within the center of all that there is. And sense the divine heartbeat. The divine heartbeat of all that there is. You have united with yourself, with the community that is within you, with every cell that is within your physical body, your mental, your emotional, and spiritual body. It has expanded. Where is the recognition that we all are one, and we are all breathing in all that there is. Beauty, love, joy, connecting to the communities, not only of this world, but of the different planets and the different dimensions, and of the all. And again now, sense that heartbeat. Heart of the divine. For this is who it is that you truly are. And we are one. We are one. And as you feel this energy, allow yourself to bask in it for as long as you desire. And as you are ready, you can then bring yourself back. You can bring this energy back with you and feel it being also grounded into the planet Earth through the microcosm of the macrocosm, all one. And so it is. So it is. So it is.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. That was wonderful.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Coming back in. I just wanted to remind everybody that Ortrun's article that she was referring to tonight is going to be in the April issue of Star Nations magazine, and we are working on it right now. Publishing day is April 10th, and we'll share that once we get closer to that too. So just so that you all know, okay? With that, thank you, Ortrun and Carl, for bringing such deep wisdom about community here. Appreciate
I want to thank everyone who's tuned in and who will listen to the replays. Without you, there wouldn't really be a program. There'd be no sense in doing it. So thank you for empowering us and letting us empower you.
Thank you for being our community.
Yes.
Absolutely. And with that, have a nice rest of the week and the weekend, and happy Easter to those who celebrate Easter, and those who are celebrating Passover. Peace to you too.
Peace to everyone.
Okay. With that, we'll be back here again next month in April for the Mystery School, and I think we're doing it on the last Thursday of the month in April. So we'll see you back here. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone.